order to show you what parts are related to what parts and how that structure goes together. Well, that sounds an awful lot to me like different levels of indenture or different tiers of a supply chain. Inside of those transactions are things like cage codes, commercial and government entity codes. You can go to a website called Cage and look those up. So there is an opportunity there. Also, the part number will be in there. There'll be a code that says, is this part number from a distributor, or is this part number from the actual manufacturer, or is it from the lead integrator? Change the number still, let you know what's actually out of. That's the story. All of that information is in there, and it also comes along with two types of data called EDFP. This is an accompanying deliverable that comes along with it. Engineering data for provisioning, which you and I would call a drawing. It's drawing of the thing that I'm provisioning. Sometimes it's 3D, sometimes it's 2D. We prefer 3D. A lot of times it'll be like a CAD CAM rendering of it. And then it'll have the indicative lever that comes underneath it, like you would see on the drawing. It says, hey, it's this particular kind of bin, or it's this thickness of material if you can't tell from the drawing itself. And then finally, we get into logistics performance data. That's everything else about the thing. How big is it? How heavy is it? Does it have anything in it that we need to be concerned with? All sorts of information we use to derive the codes that we need to populate into our logistics system to enable material management. So this is one example, just one example of data that we get delivered today. The issue is, I'm not a computer guy. I'm not a cyber guy. And even though I've seen it and I can physically look at it and I can intellectually understand it, I don't have the capability of transforming that data so that I can use it. I use it for provisioning. I actually have at every depot, I have a prime provisioning activity. Those ladies can see the matrix. But that doesn't help me prescribe. So this is one example. You might say there's other things out there. What about the actual configuration files for jets? Right? Airworthiness. How do we do airworthiness? We got to say everything that makes up the jet and say, we certify it, the jet's made of this, you can fly it safely. If it's military, if it's FAA, then the FAA certification has that configuration. And you have to have certified parts to do it. So there's a lot of areas, just like provisioning, which goes out and has structured data that already exists for a completely different reason, but has a lot of applicability into supply chain risk management. Okay, here's the other thing. If you're looking at me and you're like, Mike, I don't know what provisioning is. I bet you there's somebody near you that does. You might just have to ask, right? It happens every day in AFNC. I promise you, every day there's somebody provisioning. Like I said, we have 3 prime provisioning activities, one at each of our centers, or one at each of our 3 locations for the AFSC. There is an ability to find people with the knowledge to understand the structure. You can get the information by either going to GAIA or to NCSIS, finding how that data is structured. And what we're looking for is somebody that has the time, the know-how, and the chutzpah to go out and crack the code on this one. So I have weapon system program offices that are saying, I need you to figure this out. Next one. Too far. Too far? There we go. So what are we looking for from small businesses? We know that there are people that are out there working in program offices today, where you have somebody, if you're the business development guy, you have somebody that's delivering on the ground in a program office today. They may be a logistician that is responsible for screening those particular sequels. They may be a program manager that's responsible for the acceptance and management of those sequels. It may be somebody like an engineer that says, hey, I got this other set of things. Let's talk about things like my favorite problem.